Missouri and Oklahoma. And Southwest Airlines cancels close to 2,000 flights over the weekend, leaving passengers scrambling. Also a beef dish that's easy enough for any night of the week, but fancy enough for holiday dinners.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Several reported tornadoes ripped through the Midwest overnight, including a couple in southwest Missouri and here in Anadarko, Oklahoma, leaving a trail of damage in their wake. The severe weather system also brought heavy rain, flooding, lightning, and winds to parts of Kansas and Missouri. This is KOAM News at Noon. I'm Tanya Bach. Nearly 24 million Americans were and many still are under the threat of severe weather as a massive and intense storm system makes its way through the Midwest. Let's go straight to Michael Hayslip for a first look at what was a very busy morning for many 4-staters.
Tanya, just take a look at the individual storm reports that we had. And one thing I want to point out, and we're going to dive into this in just a second, is the line of funnel cloud icons that you see. By the naked eye, you would say, oh, one storm system that made its way up from the southwest to the northeast, through northeast Oklahoma, southern southwest Missouri, and then to the central portion. It was actually 2 separate storm systems. Let's go ahead and remove the storm reports, and we can talk about the rain that's still lingering there in the far northeastern section. But also of note, after the storms and the tornadoes came the high winds and massive power outages. We do have some great news on that front, though. Let's break it down for electric providers in Missouri, because we're seeing very limited to what we had earlier. As Barton County now tracking about 29, Jasper, and really some of these too, we have to remember, these are updated, rather frequently, but it's not going to be up to the minute. What we can do is go to an outage map here from Empire District Electric and Liberty Electric and actually give you an idea. Earlier, we were talking about as much as 4,500 customers being affected by power outages. We at one point in time had 700 in Delaware County alone. That's now down to 36. Ottawa County looks good. Let's transition into Kansas, where Lynn County, about half the county was without electricity. That is down to 0. And as we work through Bourbon, we still have about 30 in Crawford, and Cherokee looking good as well. So the nice thing is now that the winds have actually subsided from the 50-mile-an-hour gust that we had earlier. And a special shout out to all of our linemen out there who have been doing yeoman's work. Look at the rain totals that we picked up overnight into this morning, easily eclipsing 3.5, 4 inches in portions of southeast Kansas. But here's the amazing thing, because our ground was able to absorb a lot of that, we are now void of any flood warnings. We don't even have any flood watches widespread countywide. Now, certainly we do have several rivers that have the flood warnings, but nothing like what we experienced this morning. Our weather trend for the rest of the day, get this, we're actually going to turn out a little sunshine this afternoon. The cloud cover's beginning to recede with the rain off to the east. Here's the thing, we're not done yet. That's right. Coming up in the middle of the week, beginning on Wednesday, we're going to roll more severe weather and thunderstorm activity that will actually take us into Thursday. Tanya, coming up here in just a little bit, I want to break down those individual storm reports that we had. 4 confirmed tornadoes touching down according to the National Weather Service, and those storm reports, and also too, the value of having a hard hat. Even though the severe weather's over, the threat is not.
All right, thank you so much, Michael. Last night, there was golf ball-sized hail in Texas and Oklahoma and wind gusts of more than 80 miles an hour. And more than a dozen tornadoes were reported. Thousands are still without power. Maria Villarreal joins us from Coweta, Oklahoma, where a possible tornado damaged a high school.
This is part of the destruction that was left behind by the tornado. If you take a look over my right shoulder, you can see it actually ripped right through this school. Looks like this AC unit came off of the roof and is now on the ground. We also understand not far from here, an actual convenience store was hit by the same tornado. Debris is all over that parking lot. Fortunately, nobody was injured. No injuries reported just yet. Another tornado did create some destruction, though, in the town of Anadarko, 1 hour west of Oklahoma City. Several homes were damaged, and the storm led to flash flooding in the residential neighborhoods. In nearby Chickasha, cars had to drive through more than 4 inches of standing water. 2 hours west of Oklahoma City, heavy hail, strong gusts, and lightning hit the town of Alden, where winds tore down this metal structure and ripped power lines apart. Texas also had its fair share of extreme weather. Heavy rain and wind can be seen lashing the backyard of this home in Argyle. Now, back here in Oklahoma, just to give you an understanding of what happens in this area normally, in the month of October, they usually have about 3 tornadoes hit the area. Experts will be analyzing what happened overnight, and more than likely we will hit that number and exceed it. There is expected severe weather that is going to come through here late Tuesday. It should be affecting also surrounding states of Nebraska, Kansas, and North Texas once again. Mireya Villarreal, CBS News in Coweta, Oklahoma.
A large number of Crawford County parents made their voices heard at Friday's county commissioner meeting concerning the county's school mask policy. Last week, the USD 250 school board announced masks in the classroom will be optional if Crawford County and the school meets certain health requirements related to COVID-19. The same was the case for other school districts within the county. And while some people at the county commissioner meeting supported the new policy, many parents in attendance felt that student mask wearing should be 100% optional.
Give parents the option. I don't care if you send your kid in a hazmat suit. You know, we just want the option, just like you have an option to get a shot, whether you believe in that or not. And let's just make it simple. I mean, we've been dealing with this long enough. We should know by now, and personal choice.
If you'd like to listen to more parent comments or just watch the Crawford County Commissioners meeting, we've put a link in the story on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at noon, Southwest pushes back, blaming disruptive weather and air traffic control issues after a weekend of canceled flights. And later, we're making a salt-crusted beef in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen. United Airlines makes a bet on a boom in flying over the holidays. The air carrier is scheduling 3,500 domestic flights daily in December. That's the most since the pandemic began and is quickly approaching pre-pandemic levels. United says it is expanding its schedule amid a double-digit increase in searches on its app and website. Well, United may get a boost from frustrated Southwest customers. Southwest Airlines says weather was a factor in major travel disruptions across the country over the weekend. The airline canceled more than 1,800 flights starting on Friday, and as Errol Barnett reports, that's far more than any other carrier, and it's raising big questions for Southwest.
It's not a great end to a good vacation.
Long lines snaked around airport terminals as passengers rushed to rebook unexpectedly canceled flights on a busy holiday weekend.
We've been on the phone. I think we're on hold for like 3.5 hours now, and then we're probably 2 hours into waiting in line and probably another hour until we get there.
Southwest says air traffic control and weather-related challenges caused cancellations of nearly 2,000 flights. But the FAA responded Sunday saying its staffing shortages ended Friday and that airlines are having challenges due to aircraft and crews being out of place. Industry expert Henry Hardevelt.
What really bothers me is Southwest is trying to blame the FAA, air traffic control systems. It's like saying the dog ate my homework.
Southwest is clashing with its pilots union over the federal vaccine mandate. SWAPA filed a lawsuit on Friday but denies it organized a so-called sick out and says there were many operational difficulties due to management's poor planning. Southwest says it's operating at lower staff levels than it did pre-pandemic and cannot recover quickly. Still, sources tell CBS News a staffing shortage this weekend was a factor in why so many Southwest flights were cut. What is the connection between the union lawsuit we saw filed on Friday and these cancellations?
Officially, there's no connection. Unofficially, what I've heard is there are some rogue pilots who are anti-vaccine folks. They are not showing up for work.
Is this disruption a glimpse of what's to come?
Southwest's absolute meltdown doesn't bode well for Thanksgiving or for Christmas.
Now, internally, Southwest is apologizing to displaced staff who couldn't find hotels or accommodation, which only added to the scheduling issues and cancellations. But consider this, the federal vaccine mandate for airlines hits December 8th, and Southwest Pilots Union says it is considering an official demonstration also in December. Errol Barnett, CBS News at Reagan National Airport.
Still to come on the KOAM News at noon, Mr. Food.
Many of us have the day off. Thanks to today being Columbus Day, I have a historically fitting recipe that you can make as soon as tonight.
But first, Michael Hayslip returns with your complete forecast.
Where we started from this morning, that when we get to the Skywatch Storm Tracker, we're going to look at a map that does not have a flood warning, a flood watch, a tornado warning, a tornado watch. It's got nothing on it. We can all take a deep breath. That being said, I want to get on my soapbox really fast. It's going to be an afternoon and probably a tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be a little bit warmer, and we'll even have some sunshine later on this afternoon. But here's where I want to get on my soapbox here. A lot of the injuries that kind of go unknown when we talk about tornadic activity and the high winds that follow, those come after the initial storm. Those come after the process, during the cleanup. And so I strongly encourage everybody, why would you have a hard hat at home unless you work construction or a job where you needed it? You probably don't. At the same point in time, really cheap investment to stay safe. It's amazing when we go back and we do post-tornadic activity stories, how many people are injured by falling limbs off of trees. And so we've still got winds right now that are gusting up to 40 miles per hour. And so that's why I strongly advise, if you're going to be out and about, cleaning up the yard, helping out your neighbors, anything like that. I know you may think you look ridiculous. You're being very, very smart by wearing a hard hat. Michael's soapbox of the afternoon. Here we go over 7th and Range Line. Eventually we'll get some blue sky and sunshine, because on the Skywatch Storm Tracker, even when we put on the satellite coverage, we are beginning to clear off here to the west. But let's talk about our specific icons that we have in place, those indicating the storm reports. And of course, we're going to concentrate on the funnel clouds. If we go back and we look at when this originally started overnight, you'll see the definitive line that runs from northeast Oklahoma and Delaware County to Jay, right there to Neosho, and then up by the Jasper County Barton line. You go, oh, that was one storm that dropped 4 confirmed touchdowns. That was not the case, and here's where we can point that out. The indication of the storm reports and the time. Shortly after midnight is when the one touchdown in Jay. Then about an hour later is when we had the one in Newton County in Neosho, where we did have building damage and trees down. We then had a 3-hour break. We have boots on the ground. I have talked to our own Chris Warner, who is at the site of this one. Now notice, this was a secondary storm that happened about 3.5 hours later than the Neosho one. That's right, it was a secondary storm system. And right there on the Jasper-Barton County line, we had a tractor implement that was flipped over, we had a barn that was destroyed, and multiple power lines down. Now, Chris also letting us know that the National Weather Service is calling this an EF0 tornado. So they are confirming that it was a tornado that touched down on the ground, and I want to give special thanks to Tom Ryan, the Barton County Emergency Manager, and also Keith Stammer, the Jasper County Emergency Manager, for keeping us updated on all these issues. Now, speaking of high winds, that resulted in massive power outages throughout the 4 states. Earlier, we recapped that. This is much better. We're looking at probably about 300 to 400 customers in our highlighted counties that are without power right now, compared to the 4,500 that we had earlier this morning. Now we transition into the amount of rain that we had, especially up in southeast Kansas, where as early as 4 a.m., the Iola Fire Department was rescuing drivers from stranded cars. We're easily cruising over the 3.5-inch mark throughout portions of southeast Kansas. That being said, as we look at these accumulation numbers, we've been able to cancel all of our flood warnings, kind of a boon that we've been so dry for so long. And as the rain departs into central Missouri, we're actually beginning to clear out on the western side of southeast Kansas. By the time we get to our peak heating hours for the afternoon, say 2:30, 3 o'clock, we'll actually be in the low 70s, so that won't be too bad. And then, well, guess what? We get one day of temperatures in the high 70s, and then, Tanya, we're going to reload. That's right. We've got more severe weather that's going to begin Tuesday night, carry us through most of Wednesday, probably last until Thursday morning as well. So once again, we'll tie it back into a bow here. If you're going to be out cleaning up your yard, helping your neighbors, don't forget, a hard hat is not a bad investment to make.
Protect the head. All right, thanks, Michael. Well, we take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Private First Class Levon Comer in the U.S. Army. The Riverton, Kansas native joined the 1st Infantry 5th Cavalry based out of Fort Riley, Kansas in 2008. He served as a combat medic in Iraq and earned a number of honors, among them the Presidential Unit Citation, the Marksman Weapons Badge, and the Global War on Terrorism Medal. To Private Levon Comer, we thank you, our four-state hero. When it comes to easy dinner recipes, this is one you have to try. And don't let the name fool you. Howard shows us how his salt-crusted beef will practically melt in your mouth in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
Happy Columbus Day. Today, we're sharing a recipe that's inspired from the salted meats that Christopher Columbus and his crew had on board their ships. Our version is quite different, yet very tasty. Are you ready to discover what they did? The first thing we do is add some vegetable oil, a chopped onion, garlic, and a bit of black pepper to a gallon storage bag. Now we place a good-sized beef roast in the bag and let it marinate for a bit. Meanwhile, we line a roasting pan with a generous amount of kosher or sea salt that we mix with a bit of water and place our roast on top of it. Then we cover it completely with more of the salt mixture. You want to make sure the entire roast is encased in salt. Now this goes into the oven until the temperature of the meat hits about 135 for medium. That's when you know it's done. After it cools slightly, we whack it with the back of a soup spoon and watch the salt crust crack apart. What we end up with is a super juicy, super flavorful, and super easy dinner. And if you're wondering if the meat will be salty, the answer is no. The salt acts like a shell for it to cook in, and it keeps it moist. To get the recipe for our salt-crusted beef, please visit our website so you can make this tonight. I'm Howard of the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we discovered a moist and juicy way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
Definitely worth a try. Here's a look at our four-state market prices.
I know it's going to be a Monday afternoon of cleanup throughout parts of the four states. It'll carry us into Tuesday, and look at this, we're actually beginning to clear out. The rain, a thing of the past. Now the wind will slowly die down, but please be very, very careful out there, as falling limbs will still pose a hazard. We'll be up, forgive me for that one right there, we'll be up around 80 degrees tomorrow with partly cloudy skies. That's kind of an interesting one, but then we've got more thunderstorm activity that presents itself late Tuesday night, carries us through Wednesday. So a little bout of October severe weather, not quite over quite yet.
All right, well, coming up tonight at 5, the red-hot real estate market cooled a little over the summer, but it's sizzling once again. We're going to look at the latest numbers, plus how one developer is giving families who cannot afford a home the opportunity to live in a traditional house. Plus, after a night of severe weather, we check in on the latest power outages across the four states. And we've got power coverage of some of the hardest hit areas in Southwest Missouri. Join us for those stories and much more tonight on the KOAM News at 5.
I want to thank you all for joining us here on the KOAM News at noon. Tanya and I will see you again tomorrow morning.